Okay, so have you ever heard the saying, people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy?
I have, yeah. It's a pretty common one in the sales world.
It is, and it really gets you thinking differently about sales, doesn't it? It's from Jeffrey Gitomer's Little Red Book of Selling. And honestly, it's kind of brilliant.
Oh, absolutely. It kind of flips the whole script on how you approach interacting with potential customers.
It does. So for this deep dive, we're going to be focusing on some of Gitomer's most impactful ideas, specifically his 12.5 principles of sales greatness. But we're not just going to list them off. We're going to really dig into what makes them tick.
Right. We're going beyond just the what and exploring the why. The real heart of the matter is understanding why customers actually make the decision to buy. And what's really cool is that Gitomer doesn't just pull this out of thin air. He's actually talked to countless customers directly getting their insights firsthand.
That's a great point. So whether you're listening in to prep for a big meeting or just trying to wrap your head around sales better,
Yeah.
we're breaking this down so you can actually use it.
Yeah, no matter what your background is, we're aiming to make this practical and actionable, cut through the fluff and give you those golden nuggets that you can start using right away.
Exactly. So Gitomer's style is very much about real-world application, not just theory. And one of the biggest points he hammers home is that understanding why people buy is way more important than knowing how to sell.
It's huge. And he doesn't mince words about it either. He actually says it's 1 billion times more important to understand why people buy than how to sell.
1 billion times.
Okay.
I think we get the message.
Yeah, he's definitely driving that point home.
Yeah.
So how do you know if you're missing the mark when it comes to understanding your customers' motivations? Gitomer calls these early warning signals.
What are some of those red flags?
Well, you know how it is. You're constantly hitting price objections, or you're sending out a ton of bids and proposals and hearing crickets. Or maybe you're always being told that potential clients are happy with their current suppliers.
Oh, yeah. The dreaded we're all set response.
Exactly. And then, of course, there are the unreturned calls, and, some people fall into the trap of blaming a slow economy. But Gitomer suggests that maybe you're just not connecting on a deeper level.
Okay, so we've all probably experienced at least one of those at some point. So let's get down to brass tacks. What did Gitomer's customer interviews actually reveal about why people buy?
He put together a list directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And the number one reason, the one that stood out above all else, was, I like my sales rep.
Really? Just
Yeah.
liking them. You always hear about trust being the ultimate deciding factor.
And Gitomer tackles that head on. He actually quotes someone saying, your customer does not have to like you, but he does have to trust you. And his response, what an idiot.
Wow, he doesn't hold back. So
Yeah.
why is he so adamant about liking being so crucial?
Well, he sees it as the very first step. It's the foundation upon which trust is built. You like someone, you start to trust them, and that trust makes you more likely to buy from them. And then that buying experience ideally leads to a long-term relationship. That's what he calls the life cycle of sales.
Makes sense. So besides just hitting it off with the salesperson, what were some of the other reasons customers gave?
They also said it was important to actually understand what they were buying. It might sound obvious, but sometimes things get lost in translation. You have to make sure the customer is crystal clear on the product or service.
That's true. I guess we can all get caught up in the jargon sometimes.
Exactly. And they also want to see that you and your company are different. That you stand out in a good way, that there's a sense of professionalism and value.
And of course, they have to see the value in the product itself.
Absolutely. It has to solve a problem or fulfill a need for them. And then building on that idea of liking, they want to feel confident and trusting in the salesperson.
Yeah.
They need to believe in you.
It's about more than just surface level charm then.
Right. It's about genuineness. They also said they wanted to feel comfortable with the salesperson, not pressured or rushed.
Comfort. That's an interesting one.
It is. It speaks to creating a relaxed and trusting atmosphere. And they also decide to buy when they feel like the product or service really fits their specific needs.
Like a puzzle piece.
Exactly. And the price has to feel fair. Not necessarily the cheapest, but justifiable based on the value they perceive.
It's not always about being the lowest bidder then.
Nope. Sometimes offering the best value means you can command a higher price. And customers are also motivated to buy when they believe your product or service will help them improve their own operations.
So they're looking for tangible results.
Right. Things like increased productivity and, even more importantly, a boost to their bottom line.
So it's not just about fixing a problem. It's about helping them achieve their goals.
That's it. And lastly, they buy when they feel like you're genuinely invested in helping them grow their business.
So you're more of a partner than just a salesperson.
Exactly. You're a valuable resource who's there to support their success. Now, after sharing all these reasons, Gitomer throws out a challenge that's so simple, it's often overlooked.
Hmm,
He says, why not just ask your best customers why they buy from you? It seems obvious, but a lot of salespeople never actually do it.
that's a good point. We can get so caught up in our own strategies that we forget to just ask.
Right. And he even lays out a specific way to do this. He suggests reaching out to 6 of your most loyal customers and inviting them to a seminar you're hosting.
A seminar.
Yeah, but the focus isn't on selling your product or service. It's about providing valuable information that helps them grow their business. And of course, offer some good food. Make it a worthwhile experience.
Okay, so the seminar is like the main draw.
Right. And then you let them know that you'd love to get their feedback to strengthen your relationship with them. You can say something like, we've set aside about 15 to 20 minutes to ask you some specific questions that will help us better serve you in the future.
And this is where you really get to the heart of their why.
Exactly. Gitomer stresses the importance of asking carefully crafted questions that uncover how you're currently meeting their needs and what they really value in a vendor or partner.
So it's a two-way street. You're providing value to them, and they're providing valuable insights to you.
Precisely. And the really insightful part comes after the seminar.
What's that?
Gitomer says to record the whole thing. Video is ideal, but audio works too. And then listen back to that recording multiple times. He even suggests listening up to 100 times to really absorb their feedback.
100 times. Wow, that's commitment.
It shows how important it is to understand their perspective. He wants you to catch all the nuances to really grasp what makes them tick.
Okay, so that first principle is all about getting to know your customers' why.
Yeah.
And on his website, he provides a list of helpful why they buy questions in the why they buy red bit box. Now, Gitomer's next principle shifts gears a bit. It's not work, it's network.
This principle is all about the power of building relationships and creating a strong network. It's a fundamental part of sales success.
He talks about some common reasons why people don't network more effectively. What are some of those roadblocks?
Well, some people feel like they just don't have the time. They're already swamped with work. And then there's the negative attitude, the whole, I don't get paid enough for this mentality.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that one.
And some people just rely too heavily on methods like cold calling, which can be a lot less effective. And then there are those who simply don't know how or where to network effectively.
So it's a combination of time constraints, negative attitudes, outdated strategies, and a lack of know-how.
Right. Gitomer reframes networking as a blend of essential life skills, social skills, and sales skills. He even calls it business leisure to emphasize that it should be an enjoyable and integrated part of your professional life.
So it's about weaving it into your everyday activities.
Exactly. And he lays out some key benefits of effective networking. It helps you get known by the right people, generates more leads, builds stronger relationships, and ultimately leads to more sales.
Those are some pretty compelling reasons to make networking a priority.
It can also boost your career and build your reputation. And so how do you become a more effective networker? Gitomer emphasizes the importance of having a great 30-second commercial ready to go. It's your elevator pitch, your chance to make a strong first impression.
And it's more than just a quick introduction.
Right. You want to spark their interest, ask some qualifying questions, and naturally steer the conversation towards the next step. And it's important to actually allocate time for networking and have a plan. Figure out where your ideal prospects are and when you can connect with them.
Location is key. He even has a rule for it, right?
Rule A1A.
Rule A1A. Go where your customers and prospects go, or are likely to be simple but effective.
So you're strategically positioning yourself in the right places. He gives a pretty extensive list of 21.5 best places to network. Can we break down some of the highlights for our listeners? Of course, traditional avenues like Chamber of Commerce events are still valuable, both general gatherings and more specialized high-level meetings. He also suggests business journal events as good places to connect with influential individuals. Networking clubs and business organizations with active memberships are great too, as are groups centered around shared interests like alumni associations or industry-specific user groups.
So those are all pretty standard networking spots.
Yeah.
What about some less obvious options?
He recommends enrolling in classes for personal or professional growth. Think public speaking courses like Toastmasters or even language programs. You'll meet people who are focused on self-improvement.
So it's about surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals.
Right. Civic organizations are also great for building connections while giving back to your community. And he specifically recommends taking on leadership roles within these groups, show initiative and get involved.
Makes sense. What about other opportunities?
Cultural events like theater performances or concerts can attract a certain demographic. And getting involved with charities or community volunteer initiative can connect you with a diverse group of people.
It's about getting out there and being present.
Exactly. And of course, professional development is key. He emphasizes your own trade or professional association as a great place for learning and networking. But even more strategically, he highlights your customers' trade or professional associations. Attending their events and even offering to present at them can put you in front of your ideal audience.
So you're going directly to the source.
Exactly. And trade shows can be great networking opportunities, but he cautions against getting caught up in the socializing aspect. Sometimes people treat them like vacations and miss the chance to really connect with potential clients.
It's important to remember that you're there for business, first and foremost.
Right. Private clubs can provide access to specific networks, and he also mentions the power of meal networking.
Meal networking.
Yeah, intentionally inviting prospects and connections for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. He even suggests paying attention to the people you see regularly at your favorite dining spots. He's found success with consistent morning meetings at his local breakfast spot.
So it's about being mindful of the networking opportunities that exist in your everyday routines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He even talks about being aware of potential connections in leisure zones, but he emphasizes the importance of being polite to whoever you're with at the moment.
Right. Don't sacrifice a current connection for a potential one.
Exactly. And he stresses that these aren't just theoretical locations. These are places where he personally networks and has seen positive results.
That's reassuring to know.
Yeah.
So what are the main benefits he's experienced from all this networking?
Well, it's led to valuable contacts, increased sales, and a significant reduction in cold calling. He also credits it with helping him advance his career, build stronger relationships, and establish a solid reputation. And he even mentions forming genuine friendships through networking. It's not just about business transactions. It's about building meaningful connections.
That's a great point. He also mentions Harvey Mackay's 10 Rules of Networking as a valuable resource. You can find those on his website in the Dig Your Well Red Bit box.
Another great resource he offers. And to wrap up this principle, he throws out a challenge. Attend 3 networking functions in the next week and spend at least 75% of your time talking to people you don't already know.
So put yourself out there and make some new connections. He also explains how effective networking can make cold calling practically obsolete and lead to a steady stream of referrals.
Which brings us to net weaving. It's the idea of actively helping others within your network, knowing that it often comes back around in the form of support and opportunities.
So it's a pay-it-forward approach.
Exactly. Now, the next principle is pretty blunt. If you can't get in front of the real decision maker, you suck.
Straight to the point. He makes a distinction between scheduling an appointment and simply making a visit. What's the difference in his view?
A true appointment is a meeting with the specific purpose of moving the sales process forward, or better yet, meeting directly with the person who has the authority to make the buying decision. If you're just sharing information or hoping someone will pass your message along to the boss, that's not a real appointment. That's just a visit without a clear path to a decision.
So the objective is to sell the appointment itself, not necessarily the product or service at this stage.
Right. You have to give the decision maker a compelling reason to meet with you. It's not enough to just want to introduce yourself or say you can save them money. You have to pique their interest, show them the potential value, and make them want to learn more.
He makes a bold statement that simply having a product or service isn't enough to secure a meeting with a decision maker. What does he say will open those doors?
He says if all you have is a product or a service, no one will meet with you. If you have a profit-driven answer, everyone will meet with you. You have to focus on the tangible financial benefits and positive impact you can deliver to their business.
He also talks about why it can be so tough to get that meeting with a decision maker.
Sometimes the prospect just isn't interested. Or maybe you haven't clearly conveyed the value of meeting with you. Maybe your communication isn't engaging enough. Or the prospect might not even perceive a need for what you're offering.
Those are all valid obstacles.
And he advises salespeople to go beyond just knowing the basics of their company's marketing materials and pricing structures. Become a true expert in your field. And once you do get that meeting, make sure you're present when the final decision is made.
Because if you're not in the room when the decision is being made, your chances of closing the deal plummet.
Exactly. And if others have final approval, he suggests getting the initial prospect's personal commitment.
No.
You can ask, if it were solely your decision, would you move forward? And position yourself as part of their team using language like we and us.
It's about building a collaborative relationship.
Right. And ultimately try to schedule a meeting with all the decision makers together. So how do you figure out who the real decision maker is?
That's a good question.
He suggests asking a powerful question. Bill, can you walk me through how this type of decision is typically made within your organization? Then what happens? And keep asking, then what? To really drill down and uncover the true decision-making process and the key players involved at each stage. And he has a resource on his website called Reasons Why People Don't Decide. You can find it in the Red Bit section.
Okay, so you finally landed that meeting with the decision maker. What should the conversation focus on?
Instead of just talking about cost savings, focus on how your offering can directly contribute to their profitability and enhance their productivity. Be prepared to offer concrete answers to their challenges, not just general solutions or basic product education. The next principle emphasizes the importance of asking the right questions. Engage me, and you can make me convince myself asking questions.
I like that title. It really gets to the heart of what effective questioning is all about.
It does. Gitomer stresses that asking insightful, well-directed questions is absolutely crucial for sales success. But it's an area where a lot of salespeople fall short.
And the questions you ask at the very beginning can set the tone for the whole interaction.
Absolutely. He lists 9.5 benefits of asking the right questions, including qualifying the buyer, establishing rapport, uncovering needs, differentiating yourself, building credibility, gaining a deeper understanding of their business, identifying hot buttons, gathering valuable personal information, and ultimately guiding the conversation towards closing the sale.
So those questions are working hard for you.
They are, and he challenges listeners to ask themselves, do you have at least 25 powerful, insightful questions ready to go at any time? He says 95% of salespeople don't.
That's a good reality check. So what are some of his strategies for asking better questions?
He suggests focusing on questions that encourage evaluation qualified needs, explore ways to improve productivity, profit savings, uncover company and personal goals, highlight your unique value, make the customer think, create a buying atmosphere, and enhance your listening by writing down their answers.
That's a lot to keep in mind.
But it's all about asking questions that make them think. He shares a great example from Scott Wells. Mrs. Jones, if you owned your own cable channel, what kind of programming would you feature? It's a creative question that gets them thinking about their interests and desires and might reveal some underlying needs.
That's a good one. And he doesn't shy away from pointing out some of the dumb questions that salespeople often ask.
No, he lists several examples like, who are you currently using? Are you satisfied? How much are you paying? Quoting prices or submitting bids too early. Tell me about your business. Are you the decision maker? If I could save you money, would you be interested? And what would it take to get your business?
Ouch, those do sound a bit painful.
Yeah, he explains why each of these questions is generally ineffective or even potentially damaging.
So it's not just about asking more questions, it's about asking better questions.
All right, and avoid using negative language in your questions.
Good tip. He also mentions a Smart Questions resource on his website with helpful lead-ins to adapt questions for different situations.
You can find that in the Red Bit section under Smart Questions.
The next principle injects a bit of fun into the sales process. If you can make them laugh, you can make them buy.
This principle highlights the power of humor in sales. When you make someone smile or laugh, you put them at ease and create a more positive and receptive environment.
But he does offer some cautions about using humor in a professional setting.
Of course. He advises choosing humor that genuinely resonates with you, keeping it personal and testing it out with trusted colleagues or friends before using it with clients.
Good advice. It's easy to misjudge how humor will land.
Exactly. And keep it clean. Avoid potentially sensitive topics related to ethnicity or gender. He recommends steering clear of those altogether. Poking fun at yourself can be a safe and effective approach.
Self-deprecating humor is usually a winner.
It is, and don't overdo it. Don't let the humor detract from the business at hand. He also suggests some safe topics like funny things kids say or do humorous experiences with traffic, or even referencing well-known lines from popular sitcoms as long as you give credit.
Okay, so you've got a good joke or funny anecdote. What then?
He says to deliver it with confidence, but don't drag it out. Get to the punchline and move on. And he reminds listeners that not every prospect will appreciate humor. So read the room and adjust accordingly. He draws a distinction between telling jokes and sharing stories. He advises against relying on prepackaged jokes, which can often feel forced and fall flat. Instead, he advocates for sharing genuine, experience-based stories that are often self-effacing, relatable, and more effective at building rapport.
Stories tend to be more engaging anyway.
They do. They paint a picture and draw the listener in. He emphasizes that laughter is a universal language and that being friendly and funny can often be more engaging and persuasive than being strictly formal and professional.
So don't be afraid to let your personality shine through.
Exactly. He even suggests actively studying humor. Attend comedy shows, watch stand-up specials, read joke books, join Toastmasters, observe children, explore historical anecdotes, take small risks with humor in low-stakes situations, have lunch with funny people, practice facial expressions and gestures, look back at old yearbooks, listen to comedians' routines, notice the humor in everyday life, exaggerate gestures for comedic effect, and hang out with funny people to absorb their approach.
Wow, that's a pretty comprehensive list.
The point is that, like any skill, humor can be developed and improved. But he cautions against using humor if you don't have a solid grasp of your product, your customer, and the fundamentals of selling. Humor should enhance your sales skills and build stronger relationships, not replace them.
It's a tool, not a crutch.
Right. The next principle shifts gears a bit. It's reduce their risk and you'll convert selling to buying.
That sounds like a very practical approach.
It is. It's all about addressing the inherent hesitation that some prospects have even when they're interested. By proactively identifying and mitigating their perceived risks, you can significantly increase the chances of them moving forward with the purchase.
He even offers a clever way to handle the classic objection. I'm satisfied with my present supplier.
Right. Instead of getting defensive, he suggests responding with something like, well, I certainly hope you are, but wouldn't you rather be ecstatic and even more profitable than just satisfied?
It's a subtle shift in perspective.
It is. And then immediately follow up by saying, I was hoping you were satisfied. This subtly takes the wind out of their sails.
Nice. So he differentiates between a risk and an objection. How does he define those?
He explains that risks are often deeper emotional concerns that are then justified logically, whereas objections are more surface-level concerns or questions. To address risk, he lays out a process. First, identify the potential risks from the customer's perspective, then come up with specific risk removers or preventers. Test those strategies, refine them, and master their delivery, and share them with your team.
So it's a collaborative effort.
It is. He also introduces a technique called what's the risk, what's the reward. When a prospect expresses hesitation, ask them to articulate their perceived risks and write them down. Then ask them to describe the potential rewards, also writing those down and encouraging them to elaborate. Finally, systematically address each risk using let-in phrases like, suppose we could guarantee that, or what if we were to offer, and then ask if there are any other remaining reasons why they wouldn't move forward. He also emphasizes that if price is the main risk, exceptional value is the compensation you need to offer.
The next principle focuses on the power of social proof. When you say it about yourself, it's bragging. When someone else says it about you, it's proof, testimonials.
Gitomer considers testimonials to be the most powerful yet often underutilized sales tool. He quotes John Patterson, "Advertising brings awareness. Testimonial advertising brings customers."
And testimonials can be more persuasive than anything the salesperson says themselves.
Exactly, but he emphasizes that general, vague testimonials don't carry much weight.
So what makes a testimonial truly effective?
He gives examples of powerful testimonials that address specific concerns like overcoming fear, demonstrating skill improvement, highlighting leadership benefits, building confidence, and showcasing value for the investment. He notes that while a well-known name can add credibility, a recognizable company name often carries even more weight.
So it's about leveraging the authority of a trusted source.
Right. He outlines what a written testimonial should accomplish. Reduce risk, demonstrate value, showcase action, address objections, reinforce claims, and paint a picture of a happy ending. He reiterates his testimonial mantra. When you say it about yourself, it's bragging. When somebody else says it about you, it's proof. And he ends with a question, why don't salespeople bring satisfied customers along on sales calls?
Because a real endorsement from a happy customer can be the most persuasive closing tool of all.
Precisely. The next principle is all about staying alert and aware, antennas up.
I like that. It sounds like you need to be ready for anything.
You do. It's about cultivating a sixth sense for sales opportunities, being present and observant. While some salespeople might rely on gut feeling, Gitomer encourages actively engaging your inside senses.
He actually lists specific positive and negative sales senses. What are those?
The positive senses are confidence, positive anticipation, determination, a sense of achievement, a feeling of winning, and an overall sense of success. The negative senses to watch out for are fear, nervousness, rejection, procrastination, making excuses, self-doubt, uncertainty, doom, and a feeling of being unlucky.
It sounds like a mental tug-of-war.
It can be. He stresses the importance of counteracting those negative thoughts with positive ones and focusing on cultivating the positive senses.
And being aware of your own energy, because prospects can pick up on it, especially negative energy.
He shares two personal anecdotes to illustrate this. One about a chance encounter with Hal Linden in an airport restroom, and another about an unexpected interaction with Jim Kelly on an airplane. Both stories highlight the importance of being present, observant, and ready to seize opportunities.
So it's about being in the right place at the right time and having your antennas up.
Exactly. The next principle is resign your position as general manager of the universe.
That's an interesting one. What's that all about?
It's about mastering yourself after you've mastered the sales principles. Choosing to stay out of other people's drama and not getting entangled in the issues of your boss, colleagues, customers, vendors, or even friends and family unless it directly affects you.
So it's about setting boundaries.
It is. What are the risks of getting involved? He says you might get sucked into their negativity, waste your time, offer bad advice, or even face negative repercussions yourself. He emphasizes that time spent on irrelevant external matters could be better invested in your own personal and professional growth.
And his advice is pretty blunt. Save your own ass first.
It is, but it's about prioritizing your own well-being and growth. He explains how this philosophy has been a cornerstone of his own success and how choosing to step down from this self-appointed general manager role can lead to a smoother path to achieving your goals.
So less time managing other people's problems means more time for your own success.
Exactly. The next section is titled More Red Sales Thinking, and it focuses on ongoing self-evaluation and personal development. This is about the internal drivers of success, the why-I aspects. He emphasizes the importance of a strong belief system, not just in your company and its products, but in yourself. He says high self-belief leads to high success.
And this belief system fuels something else too, right?
Passion. He argues that genuine passion is crucial for conveying your message effectively and closing deals. He encourages cultivating a yes, I think I can attitude, a mindset of positive determination.
And then he talks about time management, cutting back on time wasters and investing in things that contribute to your success.
Right, and he highlights the power of writing as a tool for clarifying your thoughts and solidifying your understanding. He credits writing his regular column with leading to his successful books and encourages listeners to start writing down their own ideas and insights. He even suggests taking a writing course to improve clarity and conciseness.
So writing can be a powerful tool for personal and professional growth.
Absolutely. And he also recommends engaging in learning activities outside of your professional field. Take a course in something you're passionate about. It helps you stay curious and develop a continuous learning mindset.
Staying current with technology is important too.
Absolutely. Being internet savvy is essential in today's world. And he advises actively clarifying your ideas in public through speaking engagements. It's a great way to position yourself as a thought leader and build credibility.
And Toastmasters is a great resource for developing those public speaking skills.
It is. He also points out that strong writing skills make public speaking easier and more effective. And he encourages publishing your thoughts and insights in some form as it adds a layer of authenticity and credibility. He reiterates his philosophy of give value first as a key driver of his own success.
So always be thinking about how you can provide value to others.
The next principle reveals the two most important words in selling. What do you think they are?
I'm intrigued. Let's hear it.
The two words are you and why.
Okay, break it down for us.
He explains that customers are essentially buying you in the beginning. Your professionalism, your expertise, your trustworthiness. The very first sale you make is selling yourself. He even shares stories of deals falling through despite the customer wanting the product simply because they didn't connect with or trust the salesperson.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure the you is strong enough to close the deal?
He provides a self-assessment tool with 11.5 key attributes to consider. Your professional image, your speaking ability, your rapport-building skills, your attitude, your product knowledge, your desire to help, your preparedness, your use of humor, your creativity, your sincerity, your reputation, and what he calls your glue. Your ability to handle the entire sales process smoothly and professionally, projecting stature and strong character. He provides a scoring guide to help listeners objectively evaluate themselves.
Okay, so you've got the you down. Now, what about the why?
This refers to two important whys: your own reasons for being in sales and the customer's reasons for buying. Understanding your why gives you purpose and dedication. He suggests writing your why on index cards and placing them where you'll see them regularly, like your bathroom mirror. And then there's the customer's why. You need to understand their motivations, their needs, their desired outcomes. He recommends pre-planning insightful questions to uncover their why, his conclusion. You plus why, yes.
I love that equation. Simple but powerful.
It is. The next principle is implement the rule of the more the more.
That sounds like a recipe for success.
It is. It's the idea that the more effort you put in, the more you believe in yourself and your product, and the more prepared you are, the more likely you are to achieve greater sales success.
So it's a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. And he contrasts this with the negative impact of too much passive activity, like watching TV.
It's about being proactive and engaged.
Right. Finally, we get to the last principle. What does it take to be number one? And stay there. To illustrate this, he shares his experience of interviewing Terry Norris, who was the top salesperson at Cintas at the time.
So real-world example of someone who's achieved and maintained that top spot.
Exactly. He shares Terry's perspective on the top 10 best qualities that she believes contributed to her success.
What were some of those qualities?
A contagious, positive attitude, genuine excitement about helping others, self-assurance without arrogance, liking for people and being liked in return, strong problem-solving skills, a sense of fun, a commitment to giving 110% effort, unspoken integrity, meticulous attention to detail, and an inner childlike happiness and enthusiasm. He quotes her saying, "My attitude knob is always set on positive," highlighting her unwavering optimism. She also described herself as Gomer Pyle-friendly, sincere, and believable.
She sounds like a force of nature.
She does. And Gitomer has compiled more of her sales gems and philosophies on his website. You can find those in the Norris Red Bit section.
So to recap, our deep dive into Jeffrey Gitomer's Little Red Book of Selling has been packed with practical advice. So for our listeners, what are the key takeaways that can really make a difference in their sales approach?
It's about understanding the why behind customer behavior, building genuine relationships through networking and engagement, making sure you're talking to the decision maker, asking powerful questions, using humor, strategically mitigating risk, leveraging testimonials, staying alert and aware, mastering yourself, and embodying those key personal qualities that make you stand out.
So much great stuff to think about. Take some time to reflect on these principles, listeners. Which ones resonated with you the most? Maybe even go back and revisit certain parts of our discussion.
And to leave you with a final thought-provoking question, what's your compelling why? The one that will not only drive you to implement these principles, but will also fuel your success, not just for one sale, but for your entire career.
Because when you have a strong why, the how becomes so much clearer.
Exactly.
That's all for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.